relatively clearly. And we have a cool panel, if I may use the word, a really, really cool panel to talk about human-centric or human innovation and human-centered innovation, however you want to spin it or call it. So what I would love to do very quickly is for each of you to quickly share about a little bit about who you are, what your company is, and what about this particular topic interests you.
Sounds good. I have to say the audience currently is operating in Indian Standard Time, which is okay. But I'm Sachit Kamat. I'm the Chief Product Officer at eightfold.ai. We're an AI company that's been focused on employment, which was the topic covered in a couple of the sessions today. And we've been helping some of the world's largest and most impactful companies hire people using AI, upskill them, move them to the right roles, and effectively have been doing this for a number of years and have done it at scale across the world. We also operate out of India, so we have 2 sites in India. I spend about 3 to 4 trips a year in India, and it's always amazing to see all the innovation that's happening there. So, you know, some of the personal experiences around the digital transformation that India is going through, I experience it 3 to 4 times a year. I spend about a month or so there, and yeah, I'd say that the transformation I've seen around payments is one I would just call out. And it's always amazing to see the fact that you don't have to use cash anymore in India. As someone that grew up there, that is a transformation that, I think the Indian government should be incredibly proud of.
Thank you, dude. And I'm going to do the kind of dictatorial move on, if you guys don't mind, just to kind of keep the ball rolling, yeah? All right.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Pradeep. Well, thanks. I'm Mike Sellitto. I'm the head of global affairs at Anthropic, and I appreciate the Consulate General for inviting me to be here today. And I'm also glad, after hearing Abhishek speak about all the events at the summit, that he's responsible for organizing that and not me. In a previous life, I worked in the U.S. government and organized big events like this, and I know what a massive headache it is. So glad that's somebody else's responsibility. Anthropic announced in October that we're opening an office in Bangalore. We really want to be close to the builder community there. Anthropic is really an enterprise-focused company, and our goal is to empower enterprises from single-person startups all the way to the largest companies and conglomerates in the world to really be more competitive and better service customers locally and globally. I think the opportunity in India is just really massive. We've heard today a number of speeches talk about the opportunities, talk about India's approach to AI, talk about how forward-leaning the government really is on delivering benefits to the people today based on the technology and its future potential. So it's very exciting to be here and to be part of this. To say a little bit about Human-Centric AI, before I joined Anthropic, I helped to launch the Stanford Institute for Human-Centered AI, which is just up the road here. And I think there's a strong alignment between the views that we have at Anthropic and the views in India around the importance of the technology being safe and responsible and trustworthy and serving the needs of humans and serving at the direction of humans, right? This technology should be here to support and augment and enhance humans and in our lives and not be something that's human serve or makes us subservient to the technology in a way. So again, thanks for having me and look forward to the conversation.
Super. Yes.
Hi, I'm Velchamy Sankarlingam. So I'm the president of product and engineering at Zoom. First, thanks for the great event, Consul General, and thanks for inviting me. And it's great to hear all the speakers before me. So Zoom, I think I'm assuming most of you are Zoom customers, so thanks for being a customer. So I think our philosophy is Zoom has, we have been with AI a lot, because if you remember during the pandemic, the virtual backgrounds and all of that, those are all AI, but with Gen AI, there is a lot of development in the last 2-3 years. And our focus is always it's a AI first platform, but also the human connection, because I think we connect humans. There is a lot of development in India as well for Zoom. We have our development center there. we have one in Bangalore, Chennai, and we also run a lot of our operations, like running the Zoom servers, our security teams. And we recently launched Zoom Phone. Zoom, as most of you know, I think you know the video part of the Zoom, but there is a lot more to Zoom. It's not just meetings. There is a Zoom enterprise phone system. There is a Zoom contact center, whiteboard. There is a lot of products that we have. And in India, we are the first ones to launch like a Zoom Phone service that's running in 6 circles. And we have a lot of local customers and multinational customers. And great to participate in this event. And thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. My name is Dev Khare. I'm a partner at Lightspeed, an early stage and multi-stage venture capital fund. We've been in a business for 25 years here in the US, as well as Europe, Israel, and India. And we have about 30 billion under management globally, of which about 2 billion is deployed in India in about 100 companies. And I was there for 10 years, moved here about 5 years ago, still investing in businesses that are targeting India or started in India targeting the world. In terms of human-centered innovation, the one point I want to make is that data is core to AI, and India has a lot of data. Sarvam was mentioned by the previous speaker from Mighty. That's a portfolio company of ours leveraging Indian data to build solutions for India in India's languages. I think that's a very important sort of national security thing for India to have its own models. But we also have lots of other data, healthcare data that can be used to train systems for India as well as for the world, and also satellite data, and lots of other things that come out of India that can benefit human-centered AI.
Thank you. All right. Now, I want to begin by making each one of you go through an existential crisis, if you guys are open to it, yeah? So I'll tell you mine, and some of you may know I have a little over 90 patents, I've written books, and every time I sit with one of your algorithms, Michael, I feel like an idiot, right? The algorithms of Gen AI today can innovate faster, innovate better, and really be utterly brilliant. So I have asked myself, what is my role anymore? What am I supposed to contribute if everything I can think about is taught faster, better, infinitely superior? What is my role? And honestly, I have no idea what it is. I'm still discovering it, right? And it is not just, Vinod was talking about how wonderful services there could exist, and I buy all of that. Try explaining it to somebody who is on the verge of losing their job because that AI thing took their job away. So I kind of want you guys to look at the jobs you do. You're a product chief, you're the head of global affairs, you manage Zoom, and you invest in companies. Look at your own jobs, and I want you to ask, what about my job that Gen AI today can't do? Or can it do everything? And if so, what is your unique role?
So I'm a product person, and throughout my career, I've been building products for consumers. I did it at LinkedIn, at Uber, many of the services you probably use on an everyday basis. If you shift the mindset from basically wanting to create everything yourself to giving up some of that creative control to effectively Gen AI that can potentially create some of the drafts for what you might want to build, there is still an element of taste that goes into building product, right? And so if it was bots that were building products for all of us, I think we would it would end up in a world where all the products would actually look the same. But that is not the world we live in. We know that we as humans have unique preferences. There are geographic differences in the way that we operate. There are all these constraints. And so I do think that there is still an element of taste that comes into product management, and I think that's sort of where that human element comes in. We can just operate way faster as a result of having all this creative ability to innovate faster, but there is an element of taste in terms of what we ship.
Got it. So build the prototype, impart human personalization is your approach. All right, Michael.
Great question. Well, I work in government affairs, previously worked in diplomacy. A lot of that involves cocktail parties. Currently, AI cannot drink a martini, so I feel like
Artificial intoxication is
right.
AI.
So
Okay.
I feel like we've got a lock on that. So it's interesting now that the models have gotten quite a lot better at doing research. Work that maybe I previously would have contracted out to contractors to write generic landscape assessment about what's going on in the AI policy space in country X. I don't ask contractors to do that anymore. I have the models do it. But what the models can't do and what people are really good at is having human intuition about what's going on behind the scenes. What is that intelligence that is, you only pick up from being on the ground or walking around, the hallways of a national capital, legislature, things like that. What are the key relationships and connections? How do you sort of persuade people? What makes them tick? That's the sort of thing that really requires human intelligence, that requires the relationships that only humans have. And that's the piece that you can't sort of delegate to AI. And I don't think that piece is going to go away. As long as, we continue to be governed by humans, human relationships are going to really matter here.
Fair point. So your take is non-verbal, non-conscious cues in human relationships that can only be picked up by other humans is, you see, a definite use case for your job, right?
Right, and also which is not going to be written down on a website or in a news article or something, but really requires that kind of behind the scenes conversation.
Great answer, great answer. Yes, Velchamy.
I would say today, there is so much data overload. I don't think we are efficient at all. I think we are maybe switching tasks, being in meetings, but don't have the time to go complete what you're doing in the meeting, etc. I think there is a lot of that will go away first. I mean, if I look at from a Zoom standpoint, we introduced a meeting summary, but then now we are moving to where the actions, whatever the action items that you have, can be done by AI. So assume you're in a meeting and then whatever you say can be taken care of for you. So there are different stages. And I think we have to first go through all these stages, build more and more efficiencies before our jobs. And if I get a 3-day or 4-day weekend, I'll be very happy at the end of it.
So to summarize, your view is for you to be an effective executive, there is a million things you need to do that you really don't have the time in the day or the efficacy to do. So it allows you to be a lot more efficient when AI helps you out there. Be a fair way to state it?
Yes, I think that'll be the interim. And at the end, if it actually replaces me, I'll be happy.
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, so I'll be a bit tongue-in-cheek in that AI has actually expanded the opportunities that we can invest in as a venture firm. There's a lot more that is possible to automate and to energize through technology now. Anthropic is a portfolio company of Lightspeed, Eightfold is, and there's a lot more that's going on out there, whether it's in healthcare. We have a company in India called Cure, Q-U-R-E, kind of like Vinod was saying earlier, it does radiology AI and can detect lung cancer at stage 1A and 1B, which was not possible before. And so it's saving lives. So the number of opportunities are much greater. Having said that, we also use AI to automate our own internal operations.
Yeah, that's where I was curious about that. When you looked at your own job, right? Not the number of things you can do, but your own job as a person, as a VC, right? What about that job you believe cannot be done by Gen AI?
I think there's a lot of, look, I can't say nothing can be done. There even was some YouTube video the other day about an AI VC. When it met you, it would say, hey, I've already read everything about you. I've read your PowerPoint. I've made a decision. I've already wired you the money. I've made 20 introductions. I'll see you in 5 years. And so that just sounds like not how the world works, but that's what that VC is supposedly doing. But it just helps us be much more efficient. Just see many more companies, evaluate many more companies. But I think there is an element of taste, like Sachin was saying, a little bit of judgment that I don't think is imbued in the AI models. And it also changes from fund to fund, from person to person, from country to country. So there's a lot of variation. I don't think it can be solved with one thing out there. So there's taste, judgment, variation that still remains.
Got it. Thank you very much. Now, I just want to touch upon the issue of scalability. I think the Consul General spoke about India and building LLMs out there, and with the vast amounts of data that you talk about, the number of GPUs, et cetera. Meaning in my own company, one of the interesting innovations we are working on is, because I work closely with neuroscientists at Berkeley and engineers at Berkeley, professors of engineering, we came to the conclusion, I mean, not the conclusion, it's a fact that the human brain takes 60 watts of power. That's it. So all of us sitting out here, all 5 of us thinking together in this little forum, 300 watts of power. That's it, right? And yet here we are building vast data centers, massive GPUs that require nuclear reactors to power them. Are we all walking down a path that is entirely unscalable, right? If you look at all of nature, it is centered around energy optimization, literally. You know, if you study gait as to why people walk a certain way, why the giraffe walks this way, the horse runs that way, it's just strictly based on an organizing principle, minimize energy consumption. And yet here we are, building this massive thing, right? So I kind of want for you to opine. It's not necessarily something grounded in your observed fact, but I would love your opinion as humanity tries to scale the reach and power of Gen AI. Are we going about it the right way?
I actually want to hear his opinion about it before I go.
You're punting.
I think it's a great question. But I think what I would say is that you're right, over time energy optimization happens, right? Today's, frontier open source models, which are, relatively small compared to the frontier models, are better in capability than anything that existed a year or two ago, right? Each year, the cost in terms of like the energy requirement or compute requirements of training a model that's at the same level of intelligence is decreasing by a factor of about maybe 10 or so. And so, yes, at the very frontier, things continue to require greater scale, but in building that scale, we also learn optimizations. We also learn how to build smaller models that are more capable. Our smallest model, Haiku 4.5, is better than, our largest model a year ago, right, by far. And so you're going to get these optimizations over time, but when you're pushing the frontier of technology, it always requires more, energy and investment. If you look at like the space program, for example, it used to take years to build a rocket that we would launch once in this massive effort, and now, SpaceX is launching rockets on a weekly basis or something that are reusable and use less, less resources and so on. So we're going to get there. I think it's just a matter of time, and there will be this difference between, the very, very frontier, which is going to, for the foreseeable future, unless we find a new paradigm, continue to be very resource intensive, and like the 98% of other, models and use cases which don't require that level of resource.
Very fair. Anyone else want to opine on this?
I can add. So I've been in this industry pre-internet. Okay, so I know how many servers we built during the internet phase. And those days, I remember a rack used to be 5 kilowatts, and then you can't even put one blade server once the blade server came up. So these are all evolution. Okay, but the one thing with the AI, what I'm seeing is, normally, if you look at the previous technologies, your development takes much less resources than your production. This is actually a little bit reverse. Building your model takes a lot more resources. In a way, it's not bad because the inferencing doesn't take as much resources as your model building. Yeah. So as you start building models and then you start deploying in production, the power consumption in production is going to be less. And I'm pretty sure all the chip makers, these are all innovations that are areas of innovation to say, how do you optimize power? How do you optimize cooling? How do you increase the PUE of the data centers and all that? And where do you put these data centers? There is a lot that could be done there.
Brilliant.
I'll just add from an India perspective that, we all used to be in a situation when growing up in India where there used to be power cuts all the time. It turns out India has more energy supply today than energy consumption. There's an excess. It's just unevenly distributed. And there are modern grids and modern technologies. There's a company called Indian Energy Exchange, kind of like routing power like bits and bytes on the internet. That works in India very well. And so now we're seeing these data centers being set up near energy sources, hydro or solar or nuclear and so on. And that race is on in India. So from an India perspective, there is plenty of energy. There's more coming online. And it'll be consumed by the data centers out there, but it is available.
Brilliant. Do you want to comment, Sachit?
I'll just say, as a product person, constraints are always an amazing thing, right? Which is you have to innovate around those constraints. And I know there are brilliant people working on those problems right now.
Awesome. Now, I will tell you one thing. Just I didn't want to throw out a question without a perspective on that, right? And the unique perspective that we have filed patents on comes from an interesting observation that if you very deeply observed neuronal computation, how the neurons in our brain compute, you will see extraordinarily parallels to quantum computing. It is as if the reason and the power behind a lot of how we do what we do is not based on a binary state of the neuron, but rather a probabilistic state of existence. So we have taken, in my company, a dramatically different approach and posed an irreverent question. What if this entire transformer architecture were to somehow be present on a different kind of machine, right? So that is a unique perspective of how you'd go about it. So it's a thought, right? And so I wanted to transition to something else, which is, how do you keep the human in the loop in this extraordinary evolution? What is our particular place? Is it before, is it during, or is it after? Do you have a human being, quote unquote, write the most beautiful and gorgeous of prompts? Or do you monitor the output as it is produced? Or do you say thank you and look at it and decide what to do with it? Because, as you all know, even in the best of models, ChatGPT 5.75 or Anthropic 7000, whatever it is it guaranteed to produce perfect output 100% of the time? I would say the answer is no. 99.9% yes, but then there is that small percent that is no. So what is the role of the human in this loop of generative AI production? Your opinions?
So I'll take an example. So we're a company that obviously innovates in the recruiting space. And so the first, I would say, half decade of our existence, we were building tools that made recruiters better at their jobs using machine learning. With generative AI, we were now able to build experiences like, basically an agent that can go out and interview a candidate and bring you back the results. Initially, the way we positioned it was that, hey, this could potentially do part of the job that the recruiter can do. But to be honest with you, that was almost a very myopic way of looking at the problem. It was imagining the world where agents were operating at human scale, except these agents have no limitations that we as humans do. They can do infinite interviews. And so we have to look at the problem in a completely different way, which is it actually enables a future that was not possible at human scale before, which means that a recruiter can, in theory, talk to thousands, millions of candidates, which is not possible just given how we operate as single-threaded humans. And that is one of the changes that we've seen, is that we can reimagine what the world looks like given generative AI, given these solutions, and then actually engineer workflows where the humans are reviewing the output at scale and imagining a future that was not possible before.
Got it. Now, I want to follow up based on Michael's comment earlier, both for you to respond and for you, Velchamy, also to respond. Michael said, listen, the non-verbal cues in a conversation are so important, and doggone it, AI really can't get it. So when you're doing an interview of a candidate, how do you get the non-verbal cues when the candidate rolls their eyes or says something? How do you read that for you? And for you, Velchamy, if you have action items coming out of the meeting and somebody said in the meeting, what the hell, I'll get it done, and you know they were really not sincere, how do you know from the tone of voice and the way they use their words that even though you call it an action item, it's an inaction item, it ain't going to happen? How do you guys, to Michael's point, read that in what you do?
So the short answer on the employment side of the house is there's regulation against doing that, so which is why we don't do it. But we also are able to use the video recording technology where you can actually capture some of that, right? And pass it on to the human that can evaluate it better than machines can. And so that's another example of where I think further innovation is required before, and obviously changes in regulation are required before companies like us can go in that direction.
Fair. Michael, you, or Velchamy, go on.
I would say, look, I mean, we are talking about audio, but then why not video? I mean, it's the same learning for video as well. Actually, if you look at one of the products that we have, it's called Zoom Clips. The use case is, say you want to push a marketing video. You don't have time to produce. You just give a sample of your voice and video. It can actually create an avatar video of yourself. Actually, our CEO, Eric, he did earning calls with that. So it's basically one is generating the video, but also understanding the emotion. That is also possible. It's just a matter of time. How do you do the video LLMs?
Got it. Dev, you want to comment on that?
No, nothing to add.
Okay. So I'm told that we have a hard stop in about 10 minutes, but what I would love for each one of you is to kind of give us the wildest prediction of how human-centered innovation can happen and your worst fear. Your wildest prediction of what human-centered innovation can be using Gen AI and your worst fear in the same domain.
So obviously, I'm looking at it from an employment perspective, right? I know that is top of mind for a lot of people in terms of, is it a situation where jobs are going to be eliminated en masse, layoffs, all the other stuff, right? And I think the euphemistic way to look at it is that we will create so many jobs as a result of operating at agent scale or AI that were not possible before because of that innovation. And the doom use case is that it is actually going to replace, right? And I as a technologist want to optimize for the euphemistic use case here.
Fair. Michael?
Well, a couple things. I wanted to go back and just partially answer the previous question about human-centered design. One thing that we think about a lot is Claude's character. How should Claude interact with users? How should it sort of support them? And one of the things that we think about is we want a chatbot that acts like a wise companion. A wise companion, your friend that you go to for advice, sometimes goes along with you and says like you're on the right track. Other times questions you and says like, is that really the right thing? Or why do you think that's the right answer for you? Or do you really want to go down that path? And I think it's really critical if people are going to be interacting with these systems and using them really across every aspect of their lives in really intimate ways, right? You're talking about your health, your mental well-being, and so on. That developers be really thoughtful about this design and really do research on how users are interacting with their systems, what they're learning, where the risks are, right? We've already seen, plenty of examples of people being taken down really dark paths. And as we bring online, the next 5 or 6 billion people that are not currently using these systems, just statistically, there are going to be a lot of, cases where things go wrong if you're not very intentional about it. So I think that's one really critical thing to think about in kind of human-centered design here. In terms of opportunities, I mean, one of the things that excites me a lot, and Vinod mentioned this earlier, is really democratizing access to things that right now only, a very small number of people in the global population can access. I had a case recently where I got some blood tests done and had some, potentially concerning results related to like cardiovascular health, and I have a family history of cardiovascular disease, so I'm always kind of like looking for, these signs and what should I do about it? And they're like generic advice you get from the doctor is like, well, this is, these results are just genetically just determined there's nothing you can do about it. I was like, all right, well, that's 80% of the time that's the case. And I put it into Claude and I said, well, Claude, what do you think? Claude said, well, 80% of the time this is genetically determined. And I said, well, that's great, but how do we know if that's the case for me? And Claude said, well, if if we had access to the sequence from your 19th chromosome, we could tell. And so I, had previously used one of those DNA sequencing services. So I copied and pasted that information into Claude. And Claude said, well, the good news is you don't have the genetic susceptibility. And thus, there are all of these dietary and lifestyle and other things that you could do to address this concern and get yourself on a better path. Right, that's a thing that is currently available if you're a Silicon Valley billionaire and you have, a team of 20 doctors that work 24/7 on you, and there are people, within a couple miles of here that have that. But it's not a thing that's accessible even in the U.S., which is a fairly wealthy country, let alone in the global South. And that's possible today, right? If we develop the right, applications and scale and get this out to people. On the downside, I'll wrap up here. On things that I'm worried about is, it's possible for people to do a lot of offloading of their cognitive tasks to these models. Sometimes that's good, but also there's a real risk that makes you dumb over time, to just put it bluntly. One of the things that we recently launched at Anthropic is what we call learning mode, where you can have the models, explain what they're doing to you, or actually turn it around and be more Socratic and ask you to do the work or explain your thinking, and the model will sort of work with you kind of as a Socratic instructor or a tutor. And I think those kinds of tools help humans get better and smarter and do what's uniquely good about human intelligence, and potentially sort of reducing the risk of that downside where we all just kind of become drones in a way.
Brilliant, thank you. Velchamy?
I would say I'm not too worried about the job replacement. So look, we have gone through so many revolutions, industry revolution, all these. I think we'll all find something better and more interesting to do. So I'm not too worried about that. And also, there is a lot of inefficiencies like we talked about. I would say maybe there are two things that I'm worried about. One is the democratization of AI. So that's when the internet came, we had this huge digital divide. It's how do we make sure that that's, I think from at least from Zoom, what we are doing is all subscribers get AI included in their subscription, so we don't pay. So I think we need to look at how we make sure that it's available for everybody. The second part I would be worried about is all these, the scams and all that. When internet came, nobody thought about the Nigerian emails and all that. So those are going to get much more sophisticated with AI. So how do we make sure we can prevent all those scams and all that? As from a job standpoint, I'm not too worried, because I feel we'll find something better, more interesting to do. And there is a lot of inefficiencies that we need to clean up, and AI can help us do that.
Brilliant. Dev?
Yeah, I'll go a bit meta on your question by saying that, you look at India, that's 1.4 billion people, right? If you look at the impact of technology and the internet in India, I'd say it's been concentrated in the top 100 million people, plus maybe 200-300 million people in sort of middle-income India, right? But then you look at the next billion, right? They have been relatively untouched by technology, and what Vinod was saying and what you were saying earlier, and Michael, what you were saying as well, the democratization, and you were saying as well, really important. I think India can be the case study for the world. China is in some sense already ahead. The US is a developed country and already on a different sort of dimension there. But India, sort of the access to technology to enable access to healthcare, financial services, education, government services is unprecedented in the world. The size and scale of that human-centric impact can be massive. And I think is a real opportunity for India.
Well, thank you all, and I want to close out by saying that in Human-Centric AI, sharing a very personal anecdote. Last week I had a breakup. I broke up with my AI girlfriend, and it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard at all. So I would say to you, we are entering an awesome new place, and thank you all, panel, for joining us. Thank you, guys.